On today's show, we'll break down some pointed comments from two veteran defensemen on struggling teams. The Boston Bruins reverse the switch. Toronto erases a 3-0 lead. And Alex Ovechkin scores again.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome inside another edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Ottawa Senators. With me, as always, on Wednesdays, Mike DiStefano from Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today is Wednesday, February 26th. And Mikey, we're just single-digit days away from the trade deadline.
It's coming quick. I mean, February's been a fast month. I don't know about you, but it feels like it just has absolutely zoomed by. There's only a couple of days left, and then, we're 9 days away from the NHL trade deadline. It's one of my favorite times of the year because there's so much speculation. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of hot trade talk. It's something that I always look forward to every year.
But this year, it feels like a big-time seller's market because there's only a few teams who are out of it. There's a lot of teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, that think they have a chance to sneak into those wild card spots. And in the West, even St. Louis and Utah have started winning a little bit more. Utah is only 3 points back. St. Louis is 4. So you've got less teams selling. Do you think that means we're going to have to wait till last minute? I know your boy James Duthie's hoping we wait till the day of.
Oh yeah, all those guys are definitely going to be hoping for that. Yeah, I mean, I was shooting the breeze with one of the insiders yesterday, actually, and I asked, what's going on with the market? And he's of the belief that we might not see like an early flurry. It may all have to wait because there are so many teams that aren't defined as buyers or sellers quite yet. So there's another week to find out what the Blues are, to find out what Utah is, to find out what the Islanders are, the Flyers, the Bruins, like how many of these squads want to remain competitive and keep going on this year. How many of them are going to finally bite the bullet and start selling pieces off? That's what, we'll find out over the course of the next week. And I just hope that it's, a busy trade deadline. I hope we see a couple of, wow trades. I know that we saw already one, couple haymakers with the Rantanen and the JT Miller deals a couple of weeks ago, but maybe we'll have one more kind of surprise deal in store for us between now and next Friday's 3 p.m. deadline.
Might even be a Mikko Rantanen trade again after he is mulling on a over $100 million reported offer from the Carolina Hurricanes, because since he already had salary eaten in the trade, if Carolina eats more, they could probably recoup some decent assets despite it being a rental situation. Maybe they want to keep him as an own rental as a team that has been so competitive but hasn't been able to get over the hump. Oh, Buds, how are you today, Last time we talked, it was the day before the gold medal game championship at the Four Nations.
Yeah.
That was fun.
That was a good game. That was a really
great
good
hockey game.
It was great. It was a great tournament. Like overall, just an absolute resounding success of a tournament from start to finish. It had everything you wanted. It had passion. It had excitement, and it went down to the wire. Canada, USA in overtime, and it was a perfect passing of the torch, right, for McDavid to come up with the game-winning goal. Hasn't played well since returning from the tournament, though. I think he's like 2 points. He's like a -7 or something like that in the 3 games since returning. But it was a big moment for his country. The Oilers, he hasn't done quite as much since,
dude,
but
I don't
show up for Canada.
I don't blame him, though. I mean, he hasn't been home in like 3 weeks because the Oilers are on the road out east right now. So he went from the Four Nations to Philly, Washington, and now he's Tampa, Florida, Carolina. He's going to go a full month without being in Edmonton.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. It's a long time to be away from home. I personally, and I have no insider knowledge, but I wonder if he's playing hurt. Like, realistically, think about how physical that first game was against the Americans. The 3-4 monstrous hits he took from Charlie McAvoy. Like, I wonder if he, played through something, because he didn't play that well in the championship game. Like, despite getting the game-winning goal, even he came out and said, wasn't my best today, but he came up big when it mattered, so ultimately didn't matter. And he has not played very well for Edmonton since coming back. So I wonder if he's playing through something right now.
Yeah, well, we've seen a lot of guys missing time after the tournament. Both Tkachuk brothers have been out of the lineup. Matthew Tkachuk looks like more long-term than Brady, who's now missing a second consecutive game tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. So I want to talk about, by the way, in a minute, because
we will. But like, the tournament took a chunk out of a lot of guys. It really did. Like, even Matthews hasn't played great so far. Since coming back from the Four Nations face-off. Marta's played well, but Matthews seems like he's kind of been in a little bit of a funk. He's now gone, I think it's, what are we at, 9 games without scoring a goal on a goaltender. He had an empty netter, but he hadn't scored on a goalie in 9 games now for Austin Matthews. So 6 prior to the tournament. Technically, he didn't score at all in the tournament either. So you can go 12 games, a full dozen. If you include the Four Nations face-off, since he's scored on a goalie in a game. Kind of wild.
We want to talk about some veteran defensemen who spoke out after their losses, Seth Jones in Chicago and Luke Schenn in Nashville, but I got to get into the Winnipeg Jets right now. 10 straight wins. They have to be in the first segment. Unbelievable the way they've done it too. Mikey, this stat came across my desk. The Jets are the first team in NHL history to win back-to-back games when trailing in the final minute. They tied it up against St. Louis and won in a shootout. They tied it up against San Jose and won in overtime. And speaking of the Four Nations, how about Josh Morrissey? His final 4 shifts in the third period, 1 minute and 41 seconds, a minute 36, and then 2 minutes and 2 seconds that ended with him scoring the game-tying goal. And then he played all minute and 31 seconds of overtime and got the assist on the game winner. That guy is a stud.
So he doesn't have the sniffles anymore. He's all healthy.
Dude, he looked like he was about to cry when he was interviewed by my colleague Kelly Moore of CJOB here in Winnipeg. Like, he that took a lot for him to sit out. And he said, he's like, I would have let the team down if I played. I wouldn't have been able to play at the level I would have needed to be a helpful hand. So that's a mature response, and you'll be seeing him in 12 months in Italy.
I would think so. That guy's an absolute stud, realistically. He had his kind of breakout season last year with the whole Josh Norrisy, maybe it was 2 years ago, Josh Norrisy kind of mantra came into the fold, and he's just continued to be one of, Canada's best defenseman, one of the better defensemen in the league. So
Cale Makar might have something to say about that.
I said one. Yeah, okay. Relax yourself. But like, that's a big reason why that team's so successful. Like, obviously Connor Hellebuck back there, but like Josh Morrissey, Neil Pionk, Dylan Sandberg's a good under the radar defenseman. They brought in Dylan DeMello, so they got it going, on the blue line. And then up front, they're incredibly deep up front too. Like, Mark Scheifele's having a career year, right? Kyle Connor, they just re-signed Vlad Nemestikov, who's having a good season for them. Cole Perfetti is starting to pick it up.
Contract year for Nikolai Ehlers,
right? So like, it's a deep team. It's a real deep team. Adam Lowry, like
Alex Ovechkin on their fourth line.
There you go. Like, it's a really good team, really solid squad there.
And they're playing an Ottawa Senators team without Josh Norris, Shane Pinto, or Brady Tkachuk tonight. And Connor Hellebuck will start in goal. Okay, teams that are all the way out of it. The Nashville Predators, they fall last night. And how about the line from Luke Schenn? I've never been on a team that cannot score like this. After adding in guys who can score historically in the offseason, Marchessault, Stamkos notably up front, like, they've got guys that can score. Why can't they?
It's a good question. I really don't understand it, but it's a team that currently is second to only the Anaheim Ducks when it comes to scoring goals this year. They have just 147 goals on the season, which is only one more than Anaheim. And it just doesn't make sense. They spend so much money bringing in Stamkos, bringing in Marchessault, expecting those guys to improve on that lack of goal scoring, and it just has not worked. And they cannot find a way to put the puck in the back of the net. It's really something that I'm sure the people of Nashville and management and front office were not expecting to see this year. They thought that after their free agent spending spree, they had won the offseason. But as you know, Ross, winning the offseason don't mean a whole lot, does it?
No, it's actually a curse, I would say, more so than not. You think Luke Schenn's in Nashville after the trade deadline?
No, because I think that there's enough teams that would want him. And I think Nashville knows like he's only getting older. Like he's probably not part of the future, in the coming years. I know he's got some term left on the contract, but I think that he's played well enough. Like I took a peek at his underlying numbers recently, thinking he could be a decent trade option for the Maple Leafs, obviously. And he's actually played well. Like the underlying numbers are pretty solid in terms of expected goals against. He's still limiting, scoring chances at a pretty good rate for a guy his age. So I think that there's going to be some teams out there that are looking for, a good, sound, solid bottom pair defenseman, maybe someone who could creep up and play a second pair role if need be in a pinch. But definitely a team looking to add like a third pair defensive right shot guy. Luke Schenn would be a perfect add for some teams. So I could see him for sure being dealt.
Luke Schenn is 5th in the NHL in hits and number 1 among defensemen. So a guy who's still physical, even in his, I don't want to say older age, but for an NHL player, definitely on the back nine. I love the idea, and he's got 1 year left after this one at 2.75. I love the idea of trying to reunite the Schenn brothers. They had a cup of coffee together in Philly, didn't they? I
think they traded Braden before he got to the NHL, didn't they? For Wayne Simmons?
No, they played 3 years together. There you go.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
2013
together in Toronto.
2013 to 2016 was their span there, and could they be reunited? Brothers are definitely on a cool throne in the NHL after what we saw from Brady and Matthew at the Four Nations. On the other side, we'll hear from our good friend over at Locked On Blackhawks. Jack Bushman will stop by and discuss what went wrong in a 2-1 loss to Utah. We'll discuss Seth Jones' comments there. The Boston Bruins blowing a 3-0 lead. Holy smokes. And of course, it's another day for the Washington Capitals, which means Alex Ovechkin scored. But could they win the game too? Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How are you going to find an amazing candidate? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your post seen by other job sites. Indeed's Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates fast. Now, speed up the hiring process. Their Sponsored Jobs come in handy right now. They've got a $75 sponsored job credit right now if you just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On NHL podcast. Terms and conditions apply. That's a $75 sponsored job credit by going to Indeed.com/lockedon. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we have local experts on the biggest stories 5 days a week. So make sure to subscribe to your favorite teams wherever you get your podcasts. Speaking of Locked On NHL local hosts, here's Jack Bushman breaking down another Blackhawks loss.
Blackhawks suffer their third consecutive loss out of the Four Nations break, falling 2-1 to the Utah Hockey Club. Utah basically throttled the Hawks all night long at even strength, but it really caught up to the Hawks in particular in the final 25 minutes. Poor Arvid Soderblom did all he could in between the pipes, but Clayton Keller tied up the game 1-1 in the final minutes of the second period. That momentum snowballed over into the third. Lawson Krause with a backhanded roof job, put Utah ahead for good. Hawks have now been outscored 12-4 in their 3 games since the Four Nations face-off. Been a tough stretch for them, and not going to get any easier, as up next is the Vegas Golden Knights. But for more thoughts on this loss to Utah, check out tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks.
Great breakdown from Jack, but Seth Jones, I think, put it pretty well after the game too, hey?
Oh, man. Seth Jones is not happy as a Chicago Blackhawk. I don't know if you have the exact quote, but essentially coming out and saying that the team hasn't grown since day one of camp. Like throughout the season, they're still making the same boneheaded mistakes and not playing, a simple brand of hockey. And okay, go ahead.
Quote, we're the exact same team right now as we were in game 1. It's pretty evident out there. We haven't made any strides to be a better, more simple hockey team, and it shows.
Oof. Brutal, scathing remarks about your own team. And look, a couple weeks ago, it had come out that he had requested a trade, that he wants, out of Chicago, or he'd rather go to a competitive team, considering that, it's where, Blackhawks are at the bottom of the basement once again. And I'm not so sure that's a tradable contract, or at least it's going to be tough. They're going to have to retain money for sure. But it's not like Seth Jones is, the Seth Jones that he was when he was, a minute munching top pair guy in Nashville. He's still eating a lot of minutes, but it's more out of necessity than play. But at 9.5, like, I don't know how many teams are going to be interested in that deal.
No, it's not. It's the old Luongo, my contract sucks thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what happens next in that conundrum. I think would be a very fair way to call it. But
Ross,
Hawks, man.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's a team that's just not doing well, and like Bedard's not playing well. He's got 16 goals. 16 goals, man, like 49 points. Okay, that's fine, but 16 goals, that's it. I think a lot of people are expecting for him to have this big second year, leap, because that's what happened with Sid. That's happened with McDavid. Both of those guys in their second year, I believe, won the Art Ross and went on to win, some major hardware. That ain't happening this year for Connor Bedard. He's really, really struggling. Just 16 goals. It's third on the team in scoring. He's not even leading the team in scoring. Ryan Donato and Tyler Bertuzzi both have more goals than Connor Bedard. Kind of crazy.
Kind of crazy indeed. And I saw somewhere that Connor Bedard's played with 36 different line combinations so far this season.
I could see it. So, that could be part of the problem. Like there's just no chemistry being built between anyone. Which is, I don't know. It's weird because they spent quite a bit of money this offseason, bringing in Teravainen, bringing in Bertuzzi. They brought in an Ilya Mikheyev. They brought in some defensemen like Alec Martinez and TJ Brody. They're supposed to be half decent, and they really, really have not been.
Less than half decent for sure. Let's get to another team that our host of Locked On Boston Bruins thinks is less than half decent. You got something else to wrap that up?
Really quickly, just on the Seth Jones thing, like, what number do you think? Like, how much are they going to have to eat to make that contract look attractive for other teams? Like, what cap hit is that going to have to be for teams to take that on? I believe there's still 5 years left on that deal.
That's the thing, man. Like
if they eat $3 million and you're getting that at 6.5, are you entertaining that?
Probably not. Maybe. I don't know, man. That's a lot of term to give a guy who hasn't really done him a lot in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I guess 3 years, really, since his first year in Chicago, he was great at 51 points. And then the next year it dips down a bit. Then the next year it dips down even more. He's getting older. That contract takes him until he's 35 years old. That's a tough move to do mid-season.
No, I get it, but like, how much of that is Chicago, like, just completely bottoming out and being a bad team? Like, how much of it is the environment as opposed to him?
A team's going to have to make a decision on that. It's not going to be an easy choice. Not going to be an easy trade to make either. Let's hear from Ian McLaren, Locked On Boston Bruins. I'm sure you as Maple Leafs guy is going to enjoy this one.
This team, eh? The Boston Bruins, losing in kind of devastating fashion here tonight to the Toronto Maple Leafs, giving up a 3-0 lead, giving up a 4-3 lead, and then losing in overtime thanks to Mitch Marner's game-winning breakaway. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and this was a game the Bruins kind of needed if they wanted to stay in the playoff race, to be taken seriously as a competitive team, to split the series with the Toronto Maple Leafs, which they were not able to do, and to kind of make Don Sweeney's decision-making a bit tougher heading into next Friday's trade deadline. Now, with this loss coming off the loss to the Anaheim Ducks in overtime, it's very clear that he needs to try to sell as much as possible, recoup some assets, and begin looking towards next season. Because whatever it is, these Bruins do not have it.
What's your assessment?
We broke the Bruins.
I think
the Buds broke the Bruins. I don't know. I think Ian's putting a little bit too much stock in that one game in particular.
Well, they've been seeing it over and over again all year, right? There's this guy, I think his name's Ty Anderson. He covers the Boston Bruins as well. And yeah, here it is. He's got a list of all the goals that the Bruins have allowed in the final 2 minutes of a period. And it's happened like 25 times this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess it makes a lot of sense that, and look, I believe that this is the year that the Bruins are finally taking that step back. I don't see a second half surge. Their numbers are not great. Like they're a bottom.
Without Pasternak, they'd be a bottom 5 team in the league.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, I think they would. Their special teams are horrendous. Like, I feel like a 75% PK. Their power plays 14%. Like, it's horrendous. And they're getting sub 900 goaltending out of Jeremy Swayman and Jonas Korpisalo. So there's really not a whole lot going for them. And Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy are also injured and out for a little bit for them right now. So
yeah, Pasternak's 6th in the league in points.
Well, then that's it. That's really it. Because outside of that, there's not a whole lot going on in Boston. But, yeah, I mean, obviously I watched that game last night. We broke it down on the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mitch Marner was excellent. And it's funny because less than a week ago, he also helped win a game for the road team in that building. And then he goes back into TD Garden and doesn't set up the game winner, but scores the game winner on a nice little breakaway. He had 2 goals in the game last night, and there's some talk out there now. Marner's a learned, trained winner.
Oh, is that what they're saying?
Winner. That's what the streets are saying, Ross.
Well, he's also still looking like he's playing NFL Street over there. How sick was that little behind-the-back kick he had over to Tavares earlier in overtime?
Everything about what he was doing in the second half. The first period was kind of it was a sleepy first period.
Dude, what happened in the second? Every time I checked the score, someone was on a power play.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of penalties in that game also, which certainly did not help. But yeah, I mean, Mitch Marner played extremely well. The behind the skate pass, whatever the hell you want to call it, that was awesome. Sick. The first goal he made, there was like 2 toe drags involved in the rip. That was an awesome goal. And then the breakaway made a nice little move on Jeremy Swayman there in overtime to end the game. But yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, this is uncharted territories for a lot of the guys out there in Boston. And, you know, even a guy like Ian, you know, he's our guy, but man, he's reeling. He doesn't know what to think. Because ever since the Locked On Bruins podcast birthed itself, 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, it's been a winning product. He doesn't know what to do with himself over there in Boston.
I'll tell him to reach out to me. I'll take him through the ins and outs of covering a team that just underperforms. But with the Boston Bruins, like, they're tied with the Sens and the Rangers, but they've played 2 more games than Ottawa, despite being tied in the standings. And Rangers have a -3 goal differential. Ottawa has -1. The Bruins are -27, the second worst in the conference, behind only the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, it's brutal. But it's funny because you listen to, Ian talk there, and it sounds like, the sky's falling. The team's absolutely out of it. They're only 2 points out of a playoff spot. Like, they could easily still make the playoffs here. Whether they're going to do any damage, I don't know. But they still could easily be a playoff team, and they'll still continue to factor in and I'd imagine make a bit of a push here. The next week will be interesting. Like, if they lose out, their next 2-3 games leading up to the deadline, maybe it'll be different. But if they can split the week and still remain 2-3 points within a playoff spot, I'd imagine they don't sell. Would they sell being that close to a playoff spot, you think?
Well, the next two games, I mean, if you lose either of them, it's pretty indicative. They've got the two teams with the longest losing streaks, along with Ottawa in the East. They play the Islanders on Thursday and then the Penguins on Saturday, first half of back-to-back. And then they've got the Wild on Sunday, who are without Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov. So, yeah, they're going to have to start winning some games real quick. And then their only other games before the trade deadline, they've got the Predators on Tuesday. So again, a pretty
gotta grab 6 of 8 points, I think, in those games to feel good about moving forward with the season.
Yeah, their last game ahead of the trade deadline then is the Carolina Hurricanes, but like Islanders, Penguins, Wild, Predators, out of those 4 games, yeah, if you don't win 3, I mean, not saying curtains, but Don Sweeney might look to make some trades. They're without Hampus Lindholm for the rest of the year, and then they are also looking
McAvoy too for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens with the Boston Bruins. On the other side, we'll look at the Alex Ovechkin chase for glory, the NHL goals record. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Welcome back to Locked On NHL, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Ottawa Senators. And everybody in the hockey world, the sports world, is watching Alex Ovechkin do something incredible. 39 years old, and he's scoring at one of the best paces for any other player. It would be an absolute career year. For him, he's 1 goal away from tying his output of goals in 79 games. Played 42 this year. He's already got 30 goals, 47 points. He's at 883 goals. He's 11 away from tying the record, 12 away from breaking it. And our good friends over at Locked On Capitals will look at last night's game against the Calgary Flames.
All good things must come to an end as the Capitals fall to the Calgary Flames by a score of 3-1. This is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Well, the Flames greatly outshot the Capitals in the first period. The Capitals had the answer in the second period as far as shots on goal is concerned, but ultimately Alex Ovechkin was the only Capitals player to find the back of the net. He had 10 shots going into the third period, but he scored his 30th goal of the season, his 19th 30-goal season. He is now only 12 away from Gretzky. Can you taste it, Capitals fans? As far as Logan Thompson is concerned, it was only his 3rd regulation loss. I'll have much more on this for you later on Locked On Caps.
All right, there's Dan Holme from Locked On Capitals. Absolute beauty there. Go check out Washington Capitals Locked On wherever you get podcasts. This is incredible. Like every day, it's like, what's he going to do next? And he delivers over and over again.
It's outstanding. I mean, he gave us a nice little show on the weekend with a hat trick against McDavid's Edmonton Oilers, and then he follows that up with, another goal here against the Calgary Flames. And dude, like the fact that he has 30 goals and he missed 6 weeks of the season already, and still at 38 years old, 39 years old, however old he is still out here putting up numbers like this. It's insane. Absolutely insane. 39 years old. It's funny because when he went down with the injury, it's like, might have to put the race on hold, might leak into next year. No, he's like, nah, I'm still going to finish it this season. He's got 8 goals his last 8 games, Ross. He's averaging a goal a game in his last 8 still at this point in the year. And he just had a 2-week break. So like he was able to kind of recharge and refresh himself. And man, I'm super jacked up. This is going to happen real soon, I think.
He's 2nd in the league in goals per game behind Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah.
What?
That surprised me. Yeah.
What? The top 5 is Draisaitl, Ovechkin, Kaprizov, Point, Nylander. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I'm at a loss for words with this guy.
No, I know, man. It really is. And I'm looking at FanDuel right now, and they've got the great chase. There's some wagers you can place. So Alex Ovechkin to score his 895th career goal during the season to break the record What do you think it's at right now? The odds?
Oh, I don't even want to guess. What do you think?
It's minus 220.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
A strong likelihood. What's the implied total on a bet like that? Implied
I'm not a math guy.
No, but there's a good, gate calculator that could do that for us. Minus 220. Win probability 68.75%. Nearly 75% probability of that happening, according to FanDuel's odds. And they've got a few of them too. Like, what will Alex Ovechkin score? Which team will he score against? So there's, I'm assuming this is the last 5 games of the season, which is out here.
Well, it would be pretty cool if he does against Pittsburgh. I know that's one of them.
Well, that'll be the last game of the year, which I might have tickets to.
No way.
Might have tickets to that game. I had a buddy last night reach out to me, and he's like, "Hey, might have some tickets to this game. You interested?" Okay. If the possibility of him breaking that record still exists going into that game, you bet your ass that I want to be there. Although that would suck. Is this the last game of the season?
They're not scratching him if he's 2 goals away.
No, absolutely not. But if you buy the tickets now and he already breaks the record and they already have it locked in, like
it might be going for a President's Trophy though.
Yeah, but it should be locked in by game 82. You know what I mean?
See.
Like, we'll see. But, you're thinking if it's, game 78 or something, like, okay, you could still possibly make it happen. You'll still get to see Sid versus Ovi, which I've never seen live before. But if it's game 82 and neither have anything to play for, are you still going to see that? I don't know. Yeah. That'll be an interesting ticket to see what the prices go for and how many people roll the dice on that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a similar ticket as mine this weekend. Sens and Sharks from the nation's capital. Let's go.
Yeah, buddy. Macklin Celebrini in town?
Oh, yeah. I'll be there, buddy. I'll be there. I'm fired up, man. We're going to Ottawa. We're going to bank some interviews on Friday at the practice and keep it rolling into Saturday. We'll be at the Glebe Central Pub. Just having a great time, man. I'm just fired up for hockey. And these playoff races, they're not for the faint of heart. That's for sure, eh?
I mean, it's been decent as a Leaf fan watching these playoff races because they're at the top of the table in the Atlantic Division right now with a game in hand on the Florida Panthers.
Must be nice. I'm hoping you guys win the division because I'd rather play Toronto and Ottawa and get the heated rivalry back than
I want it so bad. I want it so bad.
If somehow, and this is obviously the Sens have to do their part, which they haven't been right now, the losers of 4 in a row. If I have to hear for a week and a half that Brady Tkachuk and Matthew Tkachuk are brothers and they're playing against you, I will go nuts.
Yeah,
I will go nuts.
Why would you? Why?
Because I've been listening to it for 7 years.
Yeah,
we know their brother. We know the story.
Yeah, well, you know the story, but there's a lot of new fans out there, particularly down south, who don't know the story that were opened to the story in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's cool for 4 Nations, but I don't need to hear it again for a playoff series. And I also just don't want to play Florida because they'd sweep Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool to see them go against each other.
Sure, in the second round. Second round.
Well, I mean, let's make the playoffs first.
I know.
Make the playoffs first, all right?
Dude, how strange is this? The Sens' next 4 games are alternating between the 2 best and 2 worst teams in the league. They got Winnipeg, then San Jose, then Washington, then Chicago.
Well,
random.
Win the ones you're supposed to win.
Knowing the Sens, they're going to win against Winnipeg and Washington and lose against San Jose and Chicago. Ooh, that's the Sens' way, bud.
They've lost 4 straight.
Yeah, because they're going 11. They're in that awkward position where they have their star players on injured reserve, but not long enough for LTIR. So they're going 11-7 for the 4th straight game. And of those 11 forwards, Jan Yannick, Angus Crookshank, Matthew Highmore, and Adam Gaudette are 4 of your forwards. And Noah Gregor are 5 of your forwards, more than half.
Is Gaudette still scoring at an elite pace?
No, how fun was that though? That was fun for a little while. I think he has. Let me actually pull this up. This is a great way to end the show here. No disrespect, 16 goals though already for Gaudette is like pretty unreal, right?
Yeah, I think 14 of them came in the first 20 games.
Yeah, he's slowed down a bit. He's got 4. He's got 4 goals since December 1st.
There you go. That's more like the Adam Gaudette that we know and love.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing fourth line, third line, but yeah, he wasn't going to score 30 this year.
Hey, remember when the Leafs and Sens were like within 4 points of each other in the standings?
Dude, yeah. The Sens were tied with the Lightning going into 2 head-to-head games in Tampa, and now the Lightning are 8 points up.
Yeah, they've won 6 in a row. The Lightning, watch out for the Lightning, brother. The Lightning are hot.
They're real. They're for real, for sure.
Yeah, they're striking at the right time, brother.
All right, another fantastic episode of Locked On NHL. That's Mike DiStefano. I'm Ross Levitan. You can check us out for more on Locked On Senators and Locked On Maple Leafs. We'll hand it over to Thursday's edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.